I think to say that the cinnamon roll tastes good is an understatement. It's a glorious, sweet delight that is beyond delicious to me. And I guess a lot of people think the same way, since it's so popular it even has its own day in Sweden on October the 4th. After all, there's just something special about the warm spiciness of cinnamon mixed into a filling and then inserted into a fluffy roll. It's impossible to just take one bite of a roll. They're gone in the blink of an eye. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to make a moist, rich, and delicious cinnamon roll with fruit yeast water. So, if you don't know what it is and if you want to know how to make it, then I'll leave a link below in the description box. So, beginning with my go-to bread pre-ferment, our Poolish. Take 100 grams of bread flour, toss that into a bowl, and then I'm gonna add in 100 milliliters of yeast water. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, so it's quite well hydrated and pretty sticky. I'm just mixing until no dry parts of flour are left, and then covering with plastic. Now we're going to set it out at room temperature and leave it for 10 to 18 hours, depending on your local weather. Alright, my alarm's gone off. We can check the Poolish now. It looks to have properly fermented, as evidenced by the slightly concave down surface, which means we can move on to the final dough mix. Now, I think of this dough as the foundation of the roll, which it is, and the foundation of any good cinnamon roll needs to be sweet, soft, airy, and, this is important, also be sturdy enough to hold its filling and roll up nicely. With all those factors in mind, this is the recipe I found that worked for me. So prepare 80 grams of milk, 1 excellent egg, 25 grams of sugar, 2 grams of salt, or just 2 large pinches, 15 grams of melted butter, and finally 250 grams of bread flour. So let's turn our Poolish over and into the mixing bowl. Then I'll move in the milk and extract the egg from its shell. Isn't that just fantastic? Now, we mix this well, then stir in sugar and salt. Our prepared melted butter. Finally, I'll add the final ingredient. Right, I'll just give this a couple more good stirs before stopping right here. Don't you think it's come together quite nicely? It looks good to me already. So I'm just going to close over it with plastic. Now, as I've said before, this is a no-knead dough. So kneading is done to strengthen our gluten strands by stretching and pulling the dough. Now, unless we're okay with eating hard and flat cinnamon discs, which I'm not, we do still want to build up these gluten strands so that they can rise up and catch all that carbon dioxide produced by the yeast, getting fluffy bread. So what do we need to do to build up these gluten strands without resorting to kneading the dough? Well, time is money, time heals all wounds, and as it turns out, can also replace kneading the bread, because just by letting the dough sit for an extended period of time, we can actually let the enzymes and yeast work for us. So the enzymes will break down the proteins in the bread, and the yeast, with their carbon dioxide production, will be doing kneading on a tiny scale. And these tiny kneads will add up eventually, given enough time, allowing the gluten structure to develop and giving us that airy bread we all want. Thus, I'll be leaving it out at room temperature for 3 hours, and then we're moving it to the fridge for a minimum of 7. So this is called cold fermentation, and the reason for doing this is that by moving it to the fridge, we can slow down the yeast activity. So this gives the enzymes more time to work on the dough without running the risk of over-fermented dough, allowing wonderful flavors and textures to arise. So, with the dough still taking a long while, let's just quickly make the cinnamon rolls filling. There are many variations of this and a lot of ways you could customize this step. The simplest base recipe I could find is really just butter, sugar, and of course cinnamon. What you add after that is really up to you. You could add raisins, chopped nuts of your choosing, more sugar to make it sweeter, and so on. The filling I'm going to be making is made with palm sugar, nuts, butter, and cinnamon. If you don't have palm sugar, you can replace it with regular white sugar or brown sugar. I personally think palm sugar actually adds a slight richness to the filling, so that's why I prefer to use it. However, it is optional. To start making it, I'm going to measure out 15 grams of butter and add in 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I'll mix the two until the cinnamon looks evenly distributed throughout, just like this. Then taking 50 grams of palm sugar, 30 grams of chopped roasted peanuts, and 15 grams of sunflower seeds, I'm just going to add them in that order. Then simply stir to combine. Alright, here is our final product. It's a chunky and sweet mix. It's not going to be very cohesive as well. That's fine, as long as we can spread it later, then it'll work out. Prepare your work surface for the dough by oiling everything. I'm oiling the surface, my 2 scrapers, my hands, and the rolling pin. This is important. We don't want to have the dough stick onto the surface or anywhere, really. Right, the dough has been undergoing cold fermentation for 7 hours in the fridge. It's ready to go. Our filling is also ready to go, so we're ready to rock and cinnamon roll. Now we've done that, I'm taking my rolling pin and trying to roll the dough out into a rectangle. The key to this is starting from the center and then going out to each of the sides. I found this is the way to get an even spread throughout. Keep rolling until it's roughly spread out to a rectangle just like this, okay? Once we've gotten here, we can now put down the rolling pin. And then let's fetch our filling and start spreading it on top of our dough. The only 2 things to focus on are to get every spot and to make an even layer of it. Eating a cinnamon roll should be a calming and pleasurable experience. With that, we are done with putting the cinnamon filling into our roll. And so we're going to now roll it up. To clarify, we're going to start from this long side, and we want to do this as tightly as we can. The reason being, if it's not tight enough, this roll will unravel when we cut it later. A cinnamon roll without a roll is not a cinnamon roll at all. Is it a cinnamon sheet? No. Anyways, I'll start from this edge using the scraper. I'm gonna flip it like this. Then we move down along the side and do the same, again making sure it's nice and tight. And there, done. We now have a roll. To further prevent it from unraveling and ruining all of our perfectly good hard work, we're going to seal the roll by pinching the seam. I'm just pinching it closed or just pressing lightly until it looks like this. There. Before we section and cut the cinnamon rolls into form, let's prepare our baking pan. This is the one I'm using. It's non-stick, but I'm still lining it with a layer of butter. This will add flavor and a light golden color to the bottom, as well as ease our cinnamon rolls in detaching from the pan later, which is always welcome. Okay, I'm done buttering up the baking pan. I'm going to prepare my ruler and scraper now and divide the cinnamon roll into 9 equal segments, so about 4 centimeters each. A quick tip I have is to try your best to keep the scraper perpendicular when cutting into the roll so it doesn't tug anything out of place. There we go, 9 equivalent parts, 9 beautiful cinnamon roses. I'm just placing them in an orderly manner, the side with a spiral on top. In case you're thinking they look a little small for the pan, actually these will rise and expand in size later, so it's important to place them a bit further away from each other and the sides of the pan to give them the best amount of space to grow. They look so beautiful already and they're properly arranged, so we're going to do a final proof, letting them rise for an hour or 2 until they've doubled in size, just like these ones. These are nearly ready to bake, so I'm going to start preheating the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. While it heats up, I'm going to give these cinnamon rolls some gloss and shine with an egg wash. So literally what's in the name egg wash, I'll just get an egg, crack it into a small bowl, then beat it and apply to the cinnamon rolls with my brush. A simple step with stunning results, you'll see in a bit. Just a light coating of the egg wash will do, by the way. I'm just using a small amount of egg wash. Okay, we've done the egg wash and the oven's been preheated. Now we just place our cinnamon rolls into the oven, then bake at 180 degrees Celsius on top and bottom heat for 20 to 25 minutes or until golden brown. And we are done. You really should just leave it for a couple of minutes to cool before eating it, but I'm just gonna go straight at it. Check that out. Cinnamon rolls. Okay, let's take a closer look at it, shall we? Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and comment and subscribe. Bye!